Now we have this list of available actions, we need to enable drag and dropping to go over. But before then, let's just fix this plus button to actually work. So one of the first things I want to do is, I've noticed you've actually got a scroll bar that pops up here and kind of blocks the view. So we need to move that button over and probably make it a little bit bigger. Then we'll make the action for the button work and we'll populate this actions list because it's not going to be quite as easy as you might think. So the first thing we'll do is fix the styling of this button. It shouldn't be too hard. We just want to find it first. So I'll search for available actions, looking for that label at the top here. So we know we're here now, and then we can see the list box will be here. Scroll down into the template and we can find the button here. So I think instead of smaller, we'll just do small. Now that makes it bigger. And then we just need to shove it over from the right a little bit. So we just make a margin, do all zeros, and then you can see with the IntelliSense the right is here. Let's try shifting it over 10. And let's just see what that looks like. There we go, perfect. So now if we hover over the bar, it's right on the edge of the button, but doesn't get in the way. So what we want to do is when we click this, these are currently actions that are in the process page view model. And in the constructor, I believe, we convert them here to available actions lists. So for each one, we fetch from the database and then cast them into these special types where they have a view model that loses the information. It basically just gets the primary information. So the issue we're going to face is we need to reverse this after, which means we'll need to write some logic to detect what the category is in order to know which database service to query to get the correct item and then fetch it back from the database. So there'll be a little bit of work involved in that. But let's start with the relay command itself. So in here, we'll have a new region called commands for now, unless they grow, and then we can separate them further. We'll have a private void, and this will be called add action to process, I guess, or add action to, add action to process sounds right. We'll need the ID because that's what we have, and actually, what we'll probably do, because we'll also need the category, we'll actually pass the full action available action item view model, I believe it is. This can be a relay command. And now if we have the UI, let's bind the button to it first because that's the slightly complicated part. So in the command, we have to do the binding. And because we're inside of a list box at the minute, this is that syntax we've used many times, we have to go up a parent, and then in this case it will be a list box. That should get us now to where we can have the data context, but because we need to cast the data context, we'll open up two brackets, we'll cast it to a process page view model in this case, that's what we're bound to in this page. And you can see that if you scroll to the top and get the data context here. So we know we're a process page view model. And then to cast, we now pass in the data context here. So the syntax is a little bit different than normal C#, but that's effectively casting the list box's data context to the process page view model. And then now we should be able to see that action add to process command. So that's the command bound when we click the plus buttons. And now we need the command parameter to pass in the actual selected item. So you can see the data context by default is already available action item view model. So that should be this item passed in automatically. Let's just see if we get that. If we do, that's one part of the process done for us. So we go to processes, print actions, click. There we go, we come into here. And we do appear to have it. And we can see now we have a category and the action view model, which has the ID we need, which then we fetch the actual view model again from the database to get the full information. So we can do a basic add first, or we can do part of the checks first. So the first thing we need to do is, because the process list has a selected item, which is the overall current process, this can be null if there's nothing selected, and then inside there we have actions. The problem we have is the selected item can be null, as you can see with the question marks. So let's just do a check first. So the process list, this should never happen because the UI shouldn't allow us to select anything, but if the UI fails, which it can do, this would end up being null and crashing. So we want to check if, for whatever reason, that's null. We just ignore. There's no reason to do anything. So now what we want to do is go to the process list, a selected item that we can guarantee exists, and we need to add the item to the actions section. So this is where we can do actions.add, and we've got an action view model. Now this isn't too hard because we aren't actually, there's a point. We don't even need to do that conversion that I was thinking about, because the list that we save doesn't care about those IDs. It will literally have just an action view model. So that means it will be the job of the rest of the program, once it comes to consume these available actions, to do this reversal. But we will have to, at some point, change this so that these aren't just custom strings here. Otherwise, the ID is not going to tell us specifically which section to get back from the database after. So we may do the work on that now, or we may just save that till later and come back to it when we need to pull them in. We'll probably come back to it because things might change in that process as well. So this shouldn't be too hard. We should just have to do the actions.add, and it's as simple as adding the item in theory. Inside the item, there's an action view model that could be null. So again, we need to do one more check, which is if the item.action view model is somehow null, which could be if it's a heading, or again, the UI just fails, we don't do anything. Otherwise, if all is good, we just add the item to the list. So if that's worked and there's nothing else to do, this should pop up and add items to the list when we're clicking the plus. And all is not well. So create breakpoint parameter. Parameter cannot be a type system.int32 as the command requires an argument of type string. And this is in a relay command as a parameter. So this is complaining, by the sounds of it, of the binding actions list. So let's remove this grid. I've got a feeling it's going to be something to do with binding. As soon as there's actually something to show in the list, I think the list has probably got the bindings wrong at a guess, because we've never shown anything yet. Yeah, there you go. So it's not crashing now. So that means that's quite hard to figure out. I've just guessed at that, but the crash is not very helpful. So what have we got wrong here? Item sources in there. Selected value binding is fine, I presume. Action view model should be fine. It's this sort order. So this was the... Why did we do this? ID. Oh, no, there is. We do need sort order because we mentioned we're going to have multiple items in this list. And they can be the exact same item multiple times, and the sort order is going to become the ID. So it's going to be this delete item command that's the problem. So we need to go to the delete item command, which will be in the selectable item list. So that's because we've done this slightly differently. So that's going to be a little bit of an issue. So the process list, go to process list. We've used the selectable items view model, this universal one we made. But the problem with that is we have a delete selected or delete item, and we expect the delete item to be a string, but we're passing in an integer. And that's because it's going to look for the ID by default at all times. And we're kind of not following that behavior in this list because we wanted the sort order. So we're going to have to do something a little bit different here. We're going to have to make an ID, I think, and ignore the sort order. So we will need, where's the sort order? The action view model has a sort order here, but it's always going to look for the ID in the action view model because this is going to expect an ID here. That will mean all we need to do is when we are doing to view model from a top level one, this just wants to make, I think, data model.sort order, data model.id. So I think this will work. We can debug it if it doesn't, but make a combined ID, including sort order. We want the semicolon, or sorry, the colon in between there, where that sort order here is finding the item. This can now become ID, which will be that new combined ID. And this delete item should look for the item by ID, and it's actually correct because it's set when we do the to view model. So ultimately, when we call to available action here, comes into here and calls this to view model. At this point, the view model is going to get the sort order and ID. Then when we come to set it and delete it in the selectable list item, that should then look for the delete item, and it's going to automatically look for the ID inside of the value here. So I think if we've done that right now, this should work. And the problem was just literally we added to the list, but the visibility, as soon as it became visible, the binding failed. So hopefully we've fixed that now. So we've got a process, we click, we add. Yes, there we go. Now we've got print only drawings. I don't like the bold, I don't know why it's always bold. We want it unbold, and then we should be able to delete. No, delete doesn't work. So we got so far, so we'll have to have a look at why delete doesn't work. And we don't have a save button showing up either. So it's not detecting that there's items in this list. And let's see what happens if we save. And then go out and in. So it's not saving either. So there's a few bugs already. There's no saving. The delete doesn't work. So let's figure out what's going on. So the first issue, I think, is with the process list. We've come across this before. When we are creating items inside of here, observable collections, it doesn't monitor for inner items. So we made a helper function somewhere, collection extensions, there, they're set and observe everything. So if we look for where we've used that, you can see this is what we have to do. So we need to override the observable collection. So instead of just doing actions like this, we need to make a public one, and then the underlying one just becomes an array. So this becomes just an array. And then we want now a public observable collection called actions. And then in here, we can return actions or set and get everything and fire off the has changed. So I think that hopefully should fix the actions not showing the save button. So we go to process, click add, there we go, we've got a save button. So that's another fix done. Now we need to do why, well, let's get rid of this bold, and then let's also figure out why when we save, it doesn't actually save. Oh, so now we have the thing listed up, foreign key constraint failed. So that will be something to do with the database because we're trying to save a process item. Not sure what that is yet. Maybe that's just clear the database and try again first. Let's figure out why the list is bold, because I don't like that. We probably just got the style copy and pasted from the other one. It will be actions list in the grid here. The label is, yeah, just literally set to bold. We don't want that. That's just a copy and paste mistake. Let's delete the database as well. Documents for quicker access, batch process, then close down, delete the database, and reopen. And now when we run the project, it will obviously remake the database. So we're going to have nothing in there after we've made all them. We're going to have to remake some. But I think we'll do some defaults going forward. So we have something that when we delete the database, it makes some defaults, which I think it already does. It's made one. So yeah, we've got one thing in there at the minute. That'll do for now. We only need the one. Save the process, that's fine. Add the single item. And now we've lost the save button again. So why is that now? Okay, so let me do that again. New one, save. Click add. So there's a bug there between, it's probably that set and observe everything that's got a bug. Tab between it's fine, but once you've saved, oh, that is strange. So it's a very specific bug. If we make a new process, save the new process, then add an item, we don't get the notification. But in every other circumstance, that works. That's a minor bug. We'll think about that one another time, but let's just make a mental note that that's a bug. So now the issue is this delete has still failed. So it's part of the deleting that's the problem. We almost have a nice, this is almost nice, but the problem is sort order. If we have two processes and each one of them has the same view model in the same position, then it's not going to be unique. We also need really this ID to have the ID of the parent process when we're coming to do to view model. So this to view model almost isn't suitable. So I think what we need to do instead, let's not do the custom code here, sort order and ID, because that's putting custom code in a slightly strange place. Let's leave that completely standard. If we go back to the process page, when we're making this list on the right side, we are effectively pulling all the database entries. And then when we create the view model here, we can override it here instead. And what we'll do here is do the f.sortorder : f.viewModel. That will get us an ID that's still not unique yet. And in fact, that's not quite the right way, is it? That's the view model there. And then after the view model, we need to edit them all. So edit all the IDs. So return list dot for each. And then in here now, the action view model, if it has one, .id equals, and this is where it'll equal the, or we can't do that way, can we? We have to say if f.viewModel isn't equal to null, then f.actionViewModel.id equals sort order ID. So this will initially tag the IDs like we already have, but we just moved it up to a better place. And what we now need to do is when we click the add, so in the commands, this now, we don't just do the action view model. We need to further edit it, and you can't just edit the item because the item's the selected thing. We don't want to edit the item. So we want almost a copy of that. So let's get a copied item. Otherwise, we're going to edit the right side list, and you'll see why in a minute. So that'll just be item dot, you can do restore state, item dot get state. And I think if we did restore state, how did we do this before? We did like a way to clone it nice and easy. We just did a new one. Restore state. Yeah, so we did this basically. Make a new one. That's what we want to do here. We want a new, which will be an available actions item view model. And then we want a copy. And it will be of the item.getState. So that's just going to now make a copy. Inside the copy, we now want to make the ID start with the process ID, because this is all nesting down so that the ID is a unique identifier to nest down. We could just make the ID what it is, but then I think we'll just do this because it's still always going to be unique. It's just one way of doing it. So that's it, the copy.action viewModel.id, and they are not all going to have action view models. So again, if copy dot action view model isn't equal to null, copy dot action view model dot ID equals, and then it's going to be the items. Bear in mind, it's already got the sort order in it now and the ID. So we just need to repeat the ID, but replace this now with the actual selected process. So this is the process list dot selected item ID. So it's the current process this relates to. And then in here, we now finally add the copy. So that'll be copy dot action view model. And we can assure it it's not null because we literally, in fact, no, we can't. We have, well, we check the item ID isn't null. So the copy, yeah, we can assure you basically because we know the copy is from one where it's checked. So yeah, this is actually correct. We know for a fact it's not going to be null. So now this won't solve all the problems, but let's see if it solves one of them. So when we click this, oh, I didn't put a breakpoint. I wanted to show you what the ID becomes. So now the copy action view model, the ID becomes the parent ID here, then the sort order, and then ultimately the ID of the action. So it's a unique ID. So now we should have solved the issue of it complaining about unique IDs. The save now is complaining about identity conflicts. Let's just delete the database. So we have a fresh database now. Let's try and add a process. Process, new, save, back, forward, just due to that bug at the minute. Add, save. Okay, so apparently that's saved. Let's check the database. And wait, what's going on with the database? Why have we got a single action? Yeah, I forgot about this. So Entity Framework has now got a feature. I think it's called table. What is it called? TPT and TBH. Basically, table per hierarchy, which will mean because we've made all these tables inherit a base class, it's going to make this unified table and just put all of the properties inside of one big table, which is not what we want. So that won't be helping us see the database. Let's fix that first. So the way we'll have to do it is every single entry, basically, every single one of these, we need to specify a table. So we can do it in here, but I think we might miss it in here if we're making classes. So what I'm going to do is instead find everywhere that's inheriting the action data model, go into it, and we'll tag this with a table attribute. And that's an Entity Framework annotation. And now if we do that everywhere where we see this, I don't like the way that Entity Framework now does it and combines tables. I just don't like it visually at all. And then it's going to easily help us identify whatever problems we've got left here. And there we go. We're back to individual tables, which is what we want. Now the question is, do we still have the action data model? So we still have action data model here. So now this table should contain only the action data models that are actually the ones that are in that list. So we probably want to call that something like action, or just an action, I think, wherever the action data model is. So we went into here, called this one just an action. And then let's do the same again, delete, remake, restart. We can now see we have the action table. So this is just the default, which means we should have, if we just run it so we can see, we have in the actions, just a print action is the only default one. So if we went to actions print, you can see now we have how we used to, the action in there. We can see the ID 49. So that's the parent ID of the print action. Processes we haven't got yet. So if we go into processes, make a new one, save it, we should be able then to see the processes. There's the new one. So we've got the ID 89, and we will have also the ID 49 if we try to add that. So if we add this to it and click save, oh, that's got the bug. Go out and in, add it, click save. Now the question is, do we have the action first? So we've got a problem with the action straight away. We've got 3 entries instead of 1. These 2, I don't know what they're even there for or where they've come from. This one, however, has the 8-9, the sort order of 0, and the ID. So that bit's correct. These 2 are, I don't even know where from, and they're just floating as well. They have no parent. So where these have come from, not a clue. We'll have to figure that out. But this now is in that list, and it doesn't pull back through. So I think the save's right. If we add another, this will probably now add an identical one because the sort order is currently not unique. So we need to fix the loading, I think, first, because now it's in there. We can probably ignore these 2 just for now. But until this loads back in, we're not going to see it. So I think we've got quite a lot of work here, a lot more than I thought, to get this working. So I think we'll just wrap this one up here before we start doing far too much in one video. And the next goal will be to keep an eye on the database and fix all of these database issues. It looks like we're going to have quite a lot of database work to do here. So we want to focus on that independently. So that's it for this one, guys. I'll catch you in the next.